business item.
Yeah, respond.
But if you put it right here,
Oh, yeah.
I used to be able to read that probably from about where Chief is standing.
Oh.
I mean, almost. I used to have better than 2010.
Oh, I've never had that.
She got
I had 2020 for a while.
One time I was sitting in a baseball
a
dugout,
Perseverance Award.
and it was William Jewell. They had a scoreboard in the right corner,
Okay.
and I couldn't read where it was. They're like, "How can you read that?" I don't know.
Nope. I've never had that vision.
Well, that's that reason why
I didn't.
when I was
I trusted that you had it all good.
4, if I had decided to keep going, I was going to be.
I'll have to call her tomorrow and get around.
Oh,
I was actually down in OCS down in Pennsylvania.
really? Oh, my gosh.
But there was this thing where I met this woman about 4 or 5 months before that,
That's been known to happen.
The purple
and
Mama's
my attitude kind of changed a little bit when I was going through.
So,
And then about a year later, when I dropped off the request in the NIFU, because it was a citizen thing.
are you ready, Madam Clerk? I'll wait till afterwards. I'll get it for you then.
I'll call him.
But so,
Very good. Good evening. It's 7 p.m. This is Thursday, September 23rd, and this is the regular meeting of the governing body of the city of Spring Hill, Kansas. As is our normal process, we'll begin with our invocation. Today, we're delighted to welcome Pastor Angie McCarty with the Spring Hill Methodist Church. It is nice to have you here, Pastor. Those of you who wish to do so, please stand and join us in prayer.
Thank you. It is so great to be here. I'm excited to be in Spring Hill, and it's kind of providential for my family because my father-in-law was the pastor of Spring Hill United Methodist Church about 50 years ago. And so things coming full circle helps me to remember always how God guides us in our lives. And I'm incredibly grateful that God has guided me here at this moment. Loving God, we sense your presence all around us. From the simple tasks that we do each day to the leadership we get to offer our city, we are grateful. We're thankful that there's nothing that we can do that will ever separate us from your presence. And so help us each to recognize and help each of our leaders to recognize your presence and the ways that you long to guide each of us and the ways that you long for this city to be enveloped in your love and your grace. So God bless our time here together tonight. Always let us sense your presence. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please continue standing for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Leeton,
here,
Mr. Owen,
Here.
Mr. Graves,
Here.
Mr. Eckert,
Present.
Mrs. Roth.
Here.
Mayor, we have a quorum present.
Thank you very much. Next item is approval of the agenda. I do have a request to add an executive session pursuant to the attorney-client privilege exception to the Kansas Open Meetings Act. There is no formal action anticipated after that executive session. Does the council have any requested additions or changes to the agenda?
when are we taking that executive session?
That will be taken after announcements and reports.
Okay, looked like it was going to be at the front. Move to approve the agenda as revised.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0-0. This takes us to citizen participation. This is an opportunity in the meeting for residents to address the council on items not already on the agenda. Anyone wishing to do so, we just ask that you step up to the lectern, state your name and address for the record, and then you will have the council's attention. Mr. Peterman, welcome.
Thank you. It's September, and I want to remind everybody that September is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. And then I also want to take this time to thank all the people that have given us the thank yous and the how's you doing stuff and the prayers. Prayers go a long way, and I want to thank everybody for the prayers. It means a lot to us. Now, the other thing is, I saw at the roundabout, they're finishing up. And we talked 8-9 months ago about when they were starting voting on the school stuff. And they said they wasn't gonna put a sidewalk out there on 199th because they had to finish all the roundabout was coming, and I don't know, they're not gonna widen that road. It's not on the plan for the next 10 years. So I would like to see, if you guys can get it, a sidewalk. The developer just passed that at Prairie Ridge, has already said he would match up to it. He'll put a sidewalk in front of his. I would like people to be able to walk on the sidewalks instead of in the streets, because that's a narrow street on 199th. So.
Very good. I'll ask Ms. Burton if you would reach out to Mr. Margetier and have that conversation.
Do you remember that when I think it was more Jim Hendershot than you.
I do remember the conversation with the school district though, and Mr. Margetier, so I'll reach out and work on that. And just a quick, that project from Ridgeview to Renner is actually on our CIP for 2025, I believe, so.
Oh, it is now?
Yes, we're trying to get that in. So.
Okay, very good.
Or under our cars, I'm sorry.
All right.
Cars, not CIP.
And then my last thing is the bean field at the cemetery. We talked about that a year and a half ago. And I was wondering if there was some way I could get a copy of the farm lease agreement. I was also wondering what kind of insurance the farmer had. The other thing is, I was told by Mr. Hendershot before he left that that was already drilled and pinned. Already pinned for the cemetery. So if we're farming that, we're ruining $50,000 worth of money the city spent for pinning it. So are you gonna spend another $50,000 to have to repin it?
Are you talking surveying?
Surveying and pinning, you know, where they drop the pins to,
We can check into it, but that may not actually be occurring. Depends on where they drop the pins and how deep.
So, Mr. Burton, if you'd add that to the list as well for you and Mr. Jenkins to work on.
I will, and we're already working on it.
Terrific, terrific. So perhaps an update. Let's see, I think we have an extra week in between our next meeting, so first meeting in October.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
Frank.
Thank you, Mr. Peterman. The floor remains open. Hearing none, we'll go ahead and close that portion of the program. And we will move into our public hearing. Before opening the public hearing, Ms. Armstrong, I'd like you to go ahead, if you would, or Mr. Burton, I'm not sure which of you wishes to introduce. While we're letting Mr. Burton get up to the lectern, as a reminder, we have to have a public hearing for both the fire contract area as well as the non-fire area. So the fire contract area is the original 1 square mile of the city, as well as all of the Miami County portion. And the non-fire portion is the remainder of the city. Proceed whenever you're ready, Mr. Burton.
Thank you. So tonight we're, like the mayor expressed, that we will be holding public hearings on the fire and non-fire for the budget. We held the budget work session last week, Thursday. The finance department went through and adjusted some things. I believe she got back with everyone that had questions. If there are any additional questions, we'll be more than happy to discuss them now. And in the hearing, so we ask that you open the public hearing for the fire district budget hearing.
All right, very good. So
2022, I'm sorry.
go ahead and open the 2022 public hearing for the proposed budget for the fire contract area. And that has a proposed mill rate of 35.94, which is a 3.144 reduction over 2021. Both of the fire and non-fire will experience a reduction in collected taxes of $88,920 over 2021. So in addition to a lowered mill levy, there's actually an also realized almost 1.2 mil roughly savings in tax dollars. So everybody should realize a tax reduction. The floor is open. Anyone who wishes to address the council on the 2022 budget for the fire contract area. Hearing none. Certainly.
Follow file 19419 with 203. And actually, it's a point of information, I guess, for myself. I noticed that the carryover dollars is 750,000, which is basically the reserve that you guys say you have. But historically, the carryover in previous 3 years has been a little over $1 million. So the question is, at the end of the year, if there's more than $750,000 to carry forward, what does that do to the budget?
Ms. Armstrong or Mr. Burton, whomever.
That is correct. In the past, we have used a carryover in our budget. And so the operating budget for each year actually took into consideration that carryover. So what we did this year, and we decided to do this purposefully, is we created the budget based on matching operating revenues and operating expenses. So that way, if we do have carryover, that the council will be able to decide how to use that. If they want to increase our reserve from $750,000, or if we want to use it for one-time expenses. So we do anticipate, we would hope that there would be a carryover, and if there is, we will let council decide how that is going to be spent.
Sure, I'll add a little bit to it. First of all, there will be a carryover. And the $750,000 in simple is, it is a true carryover. It is not going to be rolled back into the operating budget. So at the end of this year, unless something comes up or the council decides to spend it, there will be the 750 sitting there, plus whatever carryover we have from this 2022.
So basically what that does is it makes it more transparent as to what the true carryover is.
That's correct.
The 750,000, and while Mr. Burton says if it had to be spent, that comes with some consequences attached to it. That 750,000 is what the rating agencies count on as our reserve. We'd like to see that number increase. However, if we were to start cutting into that reserve, that would impact potentially our bond rating, which could result in increased borrowing costs. So we work very carefully to try and preserve that.
Yes, and that was one of the questions from the Standard & Poor's, I think, did our
It was.
rating call. The other thing was discussed is usually there's $1 million. There is $1 million carryover. $600,000 has been put into special project fund off of that also. So the Standard & Poor's thought that $750,000 was a good carryover for 22. We'll reevaluate it, or the governing body will reevaluate it in the 23 budget, and we'll go from there. So there was $1 million, and 600 and some change was put into the special projects.
And special projects typically goes to?
Streets, roads, projects of that nature.
Okay.
So is what we have focused on in guidance of what the guidance that the council has given us, or governing body, I'm sorry.
Very good. Floor remains open. Mr. Jenkins' point of, certainly.
Does that mean that in the current budget, where you note that the budget is $6,900,000 and change, you actually spent more money? Are you going to spend more money because
No,
carryover?
no, that's not correct. We're not spending any more money. the finance has, the budget that is proposed, funds itself. And we will not be spending the $750,000 carryover reserve.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
that. Quite frankly, it's not really a reserve. It's part of the regular budget.
No,
No.
no,
Oh,
A real reserve would be separate and apart, let's say like a separate.
a separate fund. We understand that. The only reason, there's two reasons, and this was from Standard & Poor's. One is having your money in something tied up in, let's say, a mutual fund or a bond or something. There's no interest really that's raised on that. The other is we're trying to, the rating agency looks and says, okay, the available cash at the time, at any time. So if there was a failure in a bond, the city can cover that. So to have that available cash to continue to help our rating, that's what we're gonna do. And that's what we're already in our minds are gonna do the next year, carry over, and if so chose by the governing body, raise that reserve. Yes.
Still a little confusing. If you're going to have more than $750,000 carried forward,
Mm-hmm.
then how does that affect the bottom line? Does that mean that your budget grows larger?
No, Luann,
Because you don't have it noted.
Here, you can
just,
talk.
Revenue that you have.
Right.
When we adopt the budget, the portion that goes to the state, it describes our expenditure capacity or how much our expenditure authority is. And so that expenditure authority is fixed. And if we end up spending more, if we receive more in revenue, even though we would have more funds available, our expenditure authority is what the governing body has adopted, what they adopt in the budget. So if we would spend more, we would need to go back and do an amended budget to get additional expenditure authority to do so.
So basically, really, we didn't put the 750,000 in for any type of expenditures.
Point of order, Mr. Jenkins, close the public hearing and vote, or is it keep the public hearing open? We've got a little different process this year.
Close the public hearing.
Okay, very good. All right, anything further? If not, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing on the 2022 fire contract area taxing, budget, and would entertain a motion to approve.
so moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I'm cautiously confident that we have a good budget. I think, we did some work. We got to do a work session on it. I think we pointed out some issues that maybe we can address later on down the road and talk about them. But with our executive staff, Mr. Burton and Ms. Armstrong, I think I'm very happy with the budget we came up with.
I would agree. The amount of energy and effort that went into the creation of this budget to meet the intent of the legislature was significant. And we went back multiple times to department heads. We became a lot more creative in how we might be able to fund certain purchases to meet objectives of the community. And this is what we did previously when the legislature first implemented the property tax lid. So I'm very pleased that while some communities around us raised their mill levy, we were able to meet the intent of the legislature and in that process identify almost $89,000 that we could save to taxpayers.
One more thing, Mayor, if I may. The Special Highway Fund, Mr. Burton, we are going to use that 254 roads in that fund.
Yes, that is set there specifically for roads by the direction of the governing body.
All right, perfect, thank you.
We can't use it for anything else, can we?
Right.
You can transfer it.
No,
out.
that's,
We could
yeah,
transfer it out, but
transfer
it's
it
in that
out.
fund, we can't
Right.
use it.
Right, and that's a good point. We put it in that fund so that it was not in the street budget,
Right.
so that this is directly reserved for street use.
Right. Very good. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 500. I will now go ahead and open the 2022 budget hearing for the non-fire taxing area. The mill levy for the non-fire area will reduce down to 23.029. It will be a 2.821 approximate reduction in the mill levy. Obviously, that can fluctuate based upon final valuation numbers, which does include a legitimate 1+ mil decrease in tax dollars. So again, everyone in the taxing area of the fire district will also see a reduction in taxes collected from the city of Spring Hill.
Yes. I think that staff did a really good job on the budget there. And as far as the public hearing and all, it's a revenue neutral. It does decrease the taxes as well. And the governing body should be pleased with themselves in actually one of the few entities that really is going to be revenue neutral. If there's any questions, we'll be more than happy to answer.
Very good. And the floor is open. Hearing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Would entertain a motion to approve the 2022 budget for non-fire.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 500. All right, thank you very much. This takes us to our one and only presentation, Chief Henson. Budgets, you can sign where indicated. Well, we have a special guest.
Nico. So we're going to tell a little bit of story, and I've got some pictures of some of his. Nico didn't know, but his badge is number 001 as our first K9. But he joined Spring Hill Police Department as a 12-month-old pup in November of 2012, and he was going to be 10 on November 11th of this year. Since joining SHPD, he has been paired with his K9 handler, Officer Lance Whiff. Together, they became best partners. Nico, he was assigned whatever shift Officer Whiff was assigned. He really didn't get to choose. But together, they did work all 3 shifts, and I think if we were to ask, they both preferred the overnight. Nico suffered an on-duty injury in 2015, and he had to have 13 stitches to close a wound on his leg. He was originally scheduled to be off for 2 weeks, but after 3 days, he was ready to go work, even with a cast on his leg. Working with a canine can be very rewarding, and there is a special bond that forms between the partners. Nico was always available to help. He was frequently called to assist with outside agencies. Over the course of his career, he assisted 17 different agencies, many of which consisted of multiple assists. Those agencies included Olathe, Gardner, Johnson County Sheriffs, KHP, Ottawa, Franklin County Sheriff, Merriam, Miami County Sheriff, DEA, Mission, Lenexa, Overland Park, KBI, Lewisburg, Prairie Village, Johnson County Parks, and Cass County, Missouri. Nico is a dual-purpose patrol dog, which means he was trained for both narcotic searches and patrol, which includes activities such as tracks, building searches, and article finds. Regarding narcotic searches, he alerted 150 times and made 140 fines. His efforts resulted in the capture of 78 narcotic misdemeanor violators and 54 felony suspects. Regarding his patrol work, Nico completed 26 tracks for suspects and 32 building or area searches. In total, Nico assisted in apprehending 20 suspects from those deployments. While conducting his 11 article searches, Nico was also able to recover a knife that was used to stab an officer and a gun that was used in a shooting. Training is important part for having a good K9 team, and Nico and Officer Whiff completed nearly 2,000 hours of training during Nico's career. And we are proud and honored to congratulate Nico on a successful career with the Spring Hill Police Department. He did a great job, and now he deserves to be pampered with special treats and stuffed toys. And with that, we want to present Nico with his retirement cookie and toy. the cookie basically thanks him for a career with SHB and his service.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to thank everybody for the support over the last 8.5 years. This was something that was quite a project to get up and running, but when we did, with the support of the city and the council and the mayor and everybody, it really took off and it really became successful. A lot of fun times during 8.5 years, some frustrating times, a lot of good apprehensions. We caught some bad people and held them accountable for their actions. We chased a lot of rabbits. We ran away a couple of times that thought it was going to cost me my job. Fortunately, he came back and we didn't tell anybody until now.
In all fairness, he was free.
It's true. It's true. This is a bittersweet time for me. All I've ever wanted to do in my career is handle a dog. When I got my first one, it was the greatest day of my life. And yeah, he's gone everywhere I've gone for the last 8.5 years. He's always been there. He's always had my back. He's always barked in my ear where I couldn't hear at times. But it's bittersweet. It's weird not coming to work with him right now. So, and while we've got his replacement, we're getting ready to roll with him, and that's going to be fantastic, and we're going to be successful as well. It's a little different with the first one. So I just want to say thanks for all the support. It was a hell of a ride.
How's Nico like being indoors?
He's figuring it out.
Good.
He during his career, he would only go in the garage when it was real cold or real
Right.
hot, so he's never been in the house. He's figured out what door to go to when he needs to go out. He's already peed on both my house dogs to show who's in charge.
One of the other things that I want to point out is that while we talk about the 3 different shifts that Nico and Officer Whip have worked, they are not confined to a particular shift. The volume of call-outs to do an assist with another agency and Officer Whip's willingness to sacrifice that personal time to help those other agencies speaks volumes to Nico's handler. And I'd like to congratulate you, Officer Whip, and thank you for your service. And the rest of this meeting is going to be a huge letdown after that. This takes us to our consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0-0. This takes us to the first of our formal council action items, consideration of approval of appropriation order 2021-09-23. Would entertain a motion.
Move to approve
Once more.
appropriation order 2021-9-23.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? If not, we'll vote by roll. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll of the council, please?
Mr. Leeton,
Yes.
Mr. Eckert,
Yes.
Mr. Owen,
Yes.
Mr. Graves,
Yes.
Mrs. Roth,
I approve appropriation order number 2021-09-23, accepting that I partially abstained from voting on 3 invoices in the total amount of $96.26 as pertaining to J&T Auto Service.
All right. Motion carries 5-0-0. And this takes us to item number 8, consideration of acceptance of an annexation petition. Ms. Burton, you have the floor.
Thank you. This is a annexation petition from Sharon and Jeffrey, GIACMO, ETTI. Sorry, I didn't want to ruin that. And Tom and Amy Bame. It's a irrevocable trust. The property is located north of Ridgeview, or north of 191st, onto Ridgeview. It's been through staff and legal as well as engineering, and we ask that you accept the petition for the 80 acres.
Move to accept the annexation petition A-000044-2-21.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0-0. This takes us to consideration of the approval of an annexation ordinance. This will be ordinance 2021-11. Mr. Burton.
The same piece of property that was just annexed in by, or petition accepted. by the governing body, the 80 acres, and we would ask that ordinance 2021-11 be accepted by the governing body, annexing this property in.
Move to approve annexation ordinance 2021-11 as stated.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? If not, it's an ordinance. We'll vote by roll. It's an annexation. Madam Clerk, if you would call the roll of the governing body, please.
Mr. Owen,
Yes.
Mr. Graves,
Yes.
Mrs. Roth,
Yes.
Mr. Leeton,
Yes.
Mr. Eckert,
Yes.
Mayor Ellis.
Yes. Ordinance carries 6-0.
Thank you.
And then this takes us to item number 10, consideration of approval of the 2022 operating budget. Ms. Armstrong.
Thank you. This has been a long budget season. I'll just refresh where we've been. The council last year in 2020 adopted its first biennial budget and conditionally approved a budget for 2022. Earlier this year, the Senate Bill 13 was adopted and brought up the notion of the revenue neutral rate. Staff adapted that conditionally approved budget so that we would have a revenue neutral budget option for the council to consider. We did file our, when we filed for our hearing, our budget hearing, we did use those original budget numbers when we filed for the hearing, so that council does have the opportunity to consider a budget that is revenue neutral, or they can increase from that amount. But what we are proposing is a budget that does have a revenue neutral option to it. So the 2022 operating budget does not include increases or new expenditures over those authorized in the 2021 budget, and it does have 3 unfilled staff positions: the accounting supervisor, the building official, and the public works maintenance worker have been suspended for the 2022 year to redirect those funds to support the revenue neutral budget. Our state form shows actual expenditures from 2020, and it does project expenses for 2021 and shows our projected expenditures for 2022. On the state budget form, although the budget authority for 2022 appears to that total expenditures have significantly increased, our budget authority includes a reserve amount that we do not intend to spend. Our revenues have been conservatively estimated, but we did increase from our original budget by $200,000 in our sales and use tax revenue. Our 2021 assessed valuations for Miami County are at $32,093,886. This is a $2,831,000 increase, or 9.6% over our 2020 valuations. Johnson County total assessed valuation was estimated at $84,598,373, which is an increase of $8,643,498, or 11.3% over our 2022 valuations. The total valuation for calculating our 2021 budget was $116,692,259, or a 10.9% increase. Revenue neutral mill levy rates were calculated by the Johnson County Clerk's Office, and the rates are 35.94 for the fire taxing area and 24.58 for the non-fire taxing area. The revenue neutral option that we are presenting has a mill levy projected of 35.940, which is exactly the revenue neutral rate, and the estimated mill levy for the non-fire taxing area is 23.029. And this does result in a reduction of the total ad valorem tax. In our 2021 budget, the ad valorem tax was $3,555,000 and $555,937, and this budget proposes ad valorem tax of $3,467,017. Staff is recommending that the city council adopt the 2022 budget at an amount of ad valorem tax of $3,467,017. Does anyone have any questions?
All right, would entertain a motion.
Move to approve the 2022 operating budget.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0-0. Thank you, Ms. Armstrong. All right, this takes us to item number 11, consideration of board appointments. We have a vacancy on the Board of Zoning Appeals, a regular vacancy, and then we have also a vacancy on the Spring Hill Recreation Commission that was the result of Ms. Roth's move to the City Council. I'm going to go ahead and offer them as a slate as we typically do. If a council member would wish that they be taken up separately, I'm certainly happy to do that. For the Board of Zoning Appeals, I am proposing to reappoint Brian King to a term concluding June of 2024. Mr. King, as many of you know, has dutifully served on the Board of Zoning Appeals for over 20 years. He brings a tremendous amount of experience with him and has been a solid performer for us in that role. For the Recreation Commission City Representative, I am delighted to propose Sean Newton to serve an unexpired term concluding June of 2024. Sean has kids active in the Recreation Commission. In our interview that we had, he talked about a number of different ideas that he had for recreational activities and improvements that he'd like to see and champion. I think he is going to be an excellent fit for that board.
What was the month and year for Brian King? I know it was 2024, but what was
Oh, I'm sorry, June of 24.
for both?
Correct.
Okay. Move to approve appointments for the Board of Zoning Appeals. Brian King to June 2024. Spring Hill Recreation Commission, Sean Newton, June of 2024.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? What's everybody and I? I'm sorry, I just couldn't hear you. All right, appointments carry 5-0-0. This takes us to announcements and reports. Again, I wanted to thank all of our department heads as well as those residents that were engaged in the budget process this year. And again, congratulations to Officer Whip and Nico. I want to remind everybody that Fall Festival is this weekend. It is back after a hiatus due to the pandemic last year. We're very excited. We'll have Webster Street cleared off so that the parade can resume as it normally does. And I believe Ms. Wood sent an email out earlier today showing where to meet at. Those of you who are walking with other members of the governing body, please make sure that you let Ms. Wood know, because obviously if we have a quorum, then she'll need to send notice out. All right. Mr. Owen.
Nothing today.
All right. Mr. Leeton.
I will be walking with the city, and make sure we have plenty of candy. I don't know how many city administrators I have fought on this. This is going to be my last one, so I want to make sure that we don't.
I was actually looking at Glenda because this is the last time she has to hear me say it too. So,
I'll bring
So I
back
was
up.
just jumping. Huh?
I'll bring backup.
So.
was there anything else, Mr. Leeton?
Yes. Sorry, I was just thinking about candy. A couple weeks ago, Mr. Messer, we talked about the potential for federal funding for busing that you had implemented in Lynn County. And how you had gotten it to where there was minimal cost to Lynn County through other things. And I kind of like to see if we could work to get that put in here, because you had gotten to the point where in Lynn County you had 3 shuttles, and with an aging population in Spring Hill and with other things that we could provide for that, it would be very nice to possibly start doing that, especially as the Johnson County has kept pulling back on the services that they have a tendency to offer us over time. And that was what the intent was of when we got those. And what started this was you were taking the 2 buses that we had gotten from Johnson County and putting them at the sale because they had gone to, and that's a whole long story about me trying to get us to go that direction, and we got those donated to us. That wasn't a cost of a loss to us.
They were not new.
They weren't not new,
wanna make
and they
sure
weren't a
there's-
cost to us though either.
Right.
So, but anyways, I kind of like to see about us going that direction.
Okay.
And working with other entities in our community where there'd probably be minimal cost to us on that, based off of what you were talking about.
Yeah, the program I was working down in Lynn County, the federal government through the state paid 85% of the bus purchase and 85% of the salaries, gas, materials. They pay 85%.
Mr. Leeton and I, he had shared this conversation with me earlier this week, and one of the things that he and I were talking about is we believe that if we reach out to the chamber, to the business community, that we're going to find any number of businesses interested in contributing. Once upon a time, there was a bus service to Price Chopper, and I know the Queen family had participated in that when that service was available. And I believe there are a lot of businesses that would band together. So when Mr. Leeton talks about it at minimal to no cost, I think that's very realistic.
Okay, let me proceed with that.
All right. Anything else, Mr. Leeton?
The other thing is what I'd like to have you possibly look at is for the West Side Lake, and also the property that we own around the aquatic center, the potential of running a brush hog through there to create a path, the walking path for people.
Okay.
It could be the start of just an area where people can take walks. As it tramples down, it's going to become more of a path. We can do things and kind of expand upon that. So I kind of like to look at it and see if our parks people can take a look at that and
Okay.
see what we could do. Because like on the lake, on that park over there, I mean, there's a small park on the dam, and then if you were to walk there, you can actually, if you tied it together, you could actually tie those two parking lots all together with that, and then also possibly loop together. So it could be actually something nice for the people in the community.
Okay,
Here.
we'll look at it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Anything else?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
All right, Mr. Eckert.
Mr. Mayor, with regard to Inspiration Park, I talked to Derek Buckridge. It seems that the COVID pandemic stalled out things a couple years ago when he was starting to get some good traction. He had an engineer lined up that was going to be doing the engineering for the firm, and then he passed away, and it shifted to another engineering firm, and it's just kind of getting slowed down.
Okay.
Is what he said in those processes. But he does have the survey done.
Okay.
Kevin Herndon helped him with that with his drone, so that's completed. He's having a lot of turnover with the board, and he's hoping to get that kind of put back together. He's going to have a dunk tank at the Fall Festival in the park, and he's hoping to generate some excitement and energy there.
Good.
With that activity, so he's happy about that. He did receive some funding from the rec department. He was excited about that, but he still hasn't had any involvement with the rec department. He thought someone was supposed to be appointed from the rec department onto that. He wasn't quite clear on that. I didn't know either.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. That would be up to that board to make an
I would
appointment.
assume so, yeah.
But Mr. Eckert, certainly you and I could sit down, we can brainstorm some other things that we might be able to do. We can visit with Parks Advisory Board. We can
Okay.
go visit the Recreation Commission.
Right. One other thing he talked about is, Hop Construction's still on board to do the dirt work when we get to that stage. But he also talked about there was supposed to be is there a road going through down that direction that will kind of help him inch along as things materialize? Are you familiar?
There's not a current road there. It would actually require going through somebody's property. So that's not something that we have discussed at present.
Yeah, he was curious about that and didn't know how that unfolded. I did encourage him to speak with you. He had talked to our previous city administrator, and now we have a new administrator to deal with. So that's
All
what
right,
he's planning on.
very good. Well, feel free to reach out if you'd like to sit down and discuss some ideas and
Love to
meet some
hear
of these
any
other.
opportunities or ideas you may have, sir.
Terrific.
Otherwise, that is it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Graves.
Yeah, a few things. One, as you mentioned, Fall Festival this weekend. I just want to thank all the volunteers that are putting that on. It's volunteer led. They do an incredible job. I know a lot of the work that they've put into that, and often get overlooked in this great event. So thank you to them. Next week we have a meeting, and I'll have a better name for it, but you know, our suicide awareness group. There are 7 very eager citizens within this community ready to combat this issue, tackle it head on. We are meeting next week, and I want to thank those individuals. We are ready to go. And then, again, just thank Ms. Armstrong, Mr. Burton, and everyone that worked on this budget. I think this is a great win for the community, and thank you so much.
Very good. And I just want to add, you brought up about the Fall Festival Committee. I think that there are a lot of people who think that Daffodil Days and Fall Festival are city-sponsored events. They're not. Those are events, respectively, Recreation Commission and a volunteer group through the Fall Festival Committee Corporation. So that's important to remember that. Of the three major events each year, the city one is Hometown Holidays, which we have a city staff who usually starts working about May or June on that. So we'll have more about that coming up as well. But in the meantime, I certainly hope that everyone gets out this weekend. Ms. Roth.
I don't want to beat a dead horse. It's been stated 1,000 times, but I'll say it again. The staff did a fantastic job of working so hard on this budget. Yes, we all had questions. Yes, we had some input, but basically the budget that you guys already had presented, with some maybe minor changes that citizens and the council presented, just fantastic. So thank you guys very much for all the work that you guys did. And yeah, super excited for Fall Festival. I'll be watching the parade.
Very good. Prior to entertaining a motion for executive session, the work that Mr. Eckert is doing on Inspiration Park, the work that Mr. Graves is doing on suicide awareness. September is National Suicide Awareness and Prevention Month. I wanted to run through a few numbers for you. By the end of the day today, 130 people in the United States will have taken their own life. Month to date, by the end of the day today, 2,990 people will have taken their own lives. At the end of September, 3,900 people will have taken their own lives. And by the end of the month, year to date, 34,580 people in the United States alone will have taken their own lives. To suggest that this has not reached pandemic levels itself is folly. And the work that we're doing as a community needs to stand as a model for every other community. Support for Zero Reasons Why and the teenagers who are involved in that program, support for the people who started Shift, and support for all of our residents who are engaged in the process of, if nothing else, at least being a little kinder to one another and a little more accepting of one another. That's all I'm going to say on that subject. I want to thank both Mr. Eckert and Mr. Graves for their diligent efforts, and I would entertain a motion to recess into executive session for 10 minutes.
Mayor, I move to the city council recess into executive session for 10 minutes to discuss threatened litigation pursuant to the attorney-client exception of KSA 75-4319B2 of the Kansas Open Meetings Act. The open meeting will resume in the city council chambers at, will we take a break or go directly in?
Let's go directly in.
At
7:48.
7:48.
Give us time to get there.
Okay.
Do we have a second?
Persons to be in attendance are the following, Patrick Burton, Acting City Administrator, Mona Keisha Jones, Frank H. Jenkins, City Attorney.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Again, there is no anticipated action to be taken at the conclusion.
You're pretty handsome. Does your wife tell you that very much?
My lack of glasses were slowing me down.
Morning, noon, and night, right?
I left my glasses in the car.
Oh, look at you.
He had like something here and I had to hold them up and I could read it from that distance, but you put it right in front of you.
I noticed you're the only one with the little white. Oh, yes.
I was waiting for the chief's report. She was gonna buy ice cream for everybody at the meeting, and she didn't get to tell everybody.
So you do know what you need to do on that, is it an overnight form or is it?
I did all of the, I know
You can't sit down at the desk? But they want to have 2 weeks off so they can go to nationals. Now, what qualifications do you have to have? You have to have a driver's license? That's it? Tell you what, you need to. Seriously. Wrestling program?
Is it,
That's hard work too. Rick Sharp was from there. He was actually and they got that's not a bad, you might think about that. But if I'll find out this be next week.
Check it at
We'll,
night
if
after
we
your thing.
get
You can
together,
ask us,
maybe
when I go to competition, or you
The,
during your lunch break, it's like,
should be the
you
next
know, I'm gonna check in.
superintendent.
Newsletter, and it's like, you know, stuff like that. It makes sense to make a plan.
Maybe you put that, we would put that in the budget fund. And we didn't get rid of that whole year. It says that head coach.
but anyway, I'm in a good
All he
spot.
worries about is the
Oh,
kids'
yes, I
stuff.
checked before. It's like, that's
I wonder where all that is.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah, so you just go get it from his desk and do it.
That's like here.
And you, Wyandotte County and Slate. Wyandotte High School.
Show it to them.
Found out
Yeah,
that
that's where you put it.
Is it something
they
that
would
you,
buy
is it like,
$37.
invoice letter or?
Price tag
No,
on the
it's
back.
the travel.
Get reimbursed,
I have to do
and
that.
just keep the tab.
You can, it's, I'm sure. Is this the one in Seattle? No, it's this one. I think that's the one, yeah, cause, okay, I thought maybe it was always in Seattle, but in 2020 it was supposed to be in Seattle. And they canceled it like last minute, so.
Bought 4 of them. I always thought 2 of them should have disappeared. Not that I'm saying that, cause I don't know if he's.
Oh, really? On Tuesday night, and it's, you know, I just in the itinerary.
I can see it all.
And then it canceled it. It's like a 45-minute bus. I'm not gonna drive an extra 2 hours or whatever now.
Why now? Does we ever have it in the
Yeah, there are people that are doing it.
That's, you know, you've got something going, you've got it done, whatever.
Remember this, we had 4 banks.
I don't know about that. I'm not going that far. No, no, no. I'll print. I'll proof. But yeah, as far as writing content, no thanks, you. I will have. Oh, nice. Do you have a picture of our logo? Lucky. Oh. Have you met Loki yet? No, I don't know.
See, what year was that?
I didn't know that. I didn't know, I thought that we were just retired. Oh.
70, it's 79. Bishop
Apparently, they got this. I love this one. And it has
When I was
like, they reached out to, I don't know if they reached out or however we found out. But they'll just give us.
I tell you what, about that 7 years ago.
3 dogs as far as.
Yeah, if I didn't.
Yeah, so he's, yeah, and then his surgery's been $4,000 or $5,000. And I think,
My brother was one of them
so
guys
much to go,
that,
like, with him, but
he
there's
went
still
to
been
the
an
University of
cost for the dog. Right.
and American history, beginning to 1885, on the big purple book,
This is probably the best.
1,094 pages.
I know, I guess so.
2 days, and quizzed out 97, 96.
That's what I was already. Yeah.
He paid it.
I don't know.
But I'm gonna look and see where it's lined up on. All of them.
Yes.
I did.
Yeah, sure. That'd be cool to get a picture. Yeah, who's doing the. Did you get a good picture of it? I'm sure. You're just like, he's like, what are the cookie?
1969, 68.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's great. Oh,
Old guy,
my.
his son worked at NASA. And he was my geometry teacher. Or algebra teacher. Anyway, he said there's always more strength in the heart than there is in a straight line. So anything you do, someone could be an Olympic kid, put it in question and I always remember that. You shoot the tape. Because when you go straight, in the middle is where they break you down. So I started relating it to that. I always, he said I was a worse example of application than ever could be. He said because I knew all the answers when we started, and I would lose in the early semester. He said because I'd learned, I'd see so much other stuff, and I heard this stuff. But I just, I was in the 98 percentile. No problem. Well, and so that was it. I didn't like history now.
It's just so hard because.
That I'm retired.
So hopefully they'll just be strong.
Right, yes, that's what you got, yeah. You can't be throwing it all out. You got, you know.
And then Brandon's gonna write on the end of his mailer and like read all about it.
Okay.
So.
That's what you need, you need somebody.
Yeah.
Did you guys find the red buckets?
Yes, Brian cooked it really where they were down in the works. And then had Nikki make 2 banners that say
Started half the thing. Now, my son, when he got the calculus,
That's good. Yeah.
we got him
She
two.
would get like 90 ballots, but you know, they weren't very big.
The first
Yeah,
year,
they're like, they had like,
that second
it's like
calculus,
yeah, which is a good, you know.
that first year,
Yeah.
you get mine, you're screwed.
But for like 17 more ounces of candy, it was $3 or $4 more to buy. But we spent less than they normally do. So, I mean, they get pieces.
Right, that.
Thank you.
She's good. That's a good quality.
We are back in open session. The discussion was limited to the topics stated. No decisions were made, no votes were taken. Would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Oh my gosh, I did that again,
Ask the
didn't
staff
I?
to go.
Prior to, we'll hold the vote on that staff report. Keep me honest, Mr. Peterman. All right, Mr. Burton, staff reports.
Well, I like the motion better, but,
The motion is still on the table.
It is open, not to
if we
worry.
could please vote on it. No, several new plats are coming through. There's some additional stormwater work that you'll see up there at Casey's, where the water's always running. We're gonna have to pipe some of that out. It's going to be an internal change order due to, there was some savings on the concrete and all, so it's a wash. So luckily, we do not have any additional monies that will go out on that part.
Good.
And if you have any real questions, Jackie can address it for you. Brookwood Farms, today we received several calls of sewer odor. And what that was, Mr. Messer and David Carr was down there. The contractor that is putting the new phase in had opened all the manhole lids. And they were actually doing some air running through it and all, and they broke off an indicator antenna. And then also we had a kinked line in that happened in the pumping of the chemical. So it's all under control again. We have all that back under control, but the contractor just had everything open. You open every manhole, you're gonna get an odor, so.
I assume, Mr. Messer, you've had a conversation with the contractor?
Yes.
I
And
think you
then,
didn't light up a cigarette.
Right.
and then, we've had several, not complaints, but several people comment that parking along the detour routes, the temporary routes, we'll address that. The chief and Mr. Messer will address that. We'll get that taken care of. Obviously, everything's gonna be open this weekend, but after that, so. Anyway, it looks like, I can just go ahead. The, Webster's way ahead of schedule. If not for the parade and all, they probably would have went ahead and milled and went ahead and put in the, storm range stuff. So it looks like the UBAS maybe by the end of next week. So it's going pretty good.
Excellent.
That's all I have. Thank you.
All right,
Question for Mr. Burton.
of course.
Is there any porta potties left over or around from the construction? I know that would benefit the crowd immensely.
We can check. And they won't take anything up,
That
but
would be one thing to leave behind, would be those porta potties.
yeah, they're not going to, cause they still have work to do, but yeah. And I haven't received any calls of, inappropriate behavior there on urination on tires or anything from construction workers, so I'm assuming there's some there.
Right. Yes, yes, it certainly would be.
Yes, so.
All right.
Thank you.
Mr. Burton. Madam Clerk.
I just want to recognize Ashley Wood. She's really been taking control of the Fall Festival and the Mayor's Christmas Tree Fund. And I know they're going to have a booth, so I don't know if she can give more information on what they're going to be doing this weekend. But I do want to recognize Ashley and other staff that have been helping her. But she's been the one that's really been taking that and relieving me, and I really do appreciate that.
Terrific, terrific. Ms. Armstrong.
No report.
All right, Mr. Messer.
I get the mic, it's fun to play with. Again, Webster's gonna go forward, they're theoretically, you pass by end of next week, like he said. After that, we're going to pivot and start fixing some of these roads that have been damaged by the additional traffic. So, King, Wilson,
King.
yeah, King and Wilson, where they turn on Madison and Lawrence, there's a bunch of them. So we're gonna finish up at Maple Ridge and we're gonna pivot in there, but I kind of want them to get done before we start making repairs.
Right.
You talked about Purple Wave. We met with them yesterday. We have the 2 buses and a patrol car on Purple Wave that should come out this week. And the worries on the candy, my office is full of it, so we've got it.
Pat's been telling me you were full of it. I didn't know what he meant, so.
And it's tough. There's all these bags have my favorite candy in there, but I haven't slid any of them open yet. We've also I want to take Public Works. I've been talking with Pat. We're going to try to go to another level on some software, some record keeping that will improve the operation and take everything to another level. So we're going to be working on a proposal and bring forward to purchase some software that will help us track equipment, jobs, planning tool, which we haven't really been doing, condition codes. So we'll be bringing a proposal forward.
Terrific. I know that Mr. Leeton's got some thoughts on that. I'd also like you to work with Councilmember Roth.
Okay.
Well, and there are just a couple of things that I want you to keep in mind. Mean time to repair is a metric that I think is important for the community to know. I think you also want to get some sort of a touch report so that if a resident has logged a ticket and it hasn't been touched in X amount of time, you get notified, so that way we don't have things slip through the cracks. So keep those couple of things in mind, but if you would reach out to council members Leeton and Roth, and if you two don't mind, I would appreciate your input there. I think you both have some valuable experience that will help to ensure that we get the most robust system.
Okay, sounds good.
And you're talking about a CMMS, right?
Yes, I think we use different terminology, but yes, it's for all preventative, routine, emergency. The one I used in, I've used 4 or 5 throughout my career, but the last one that I used in Lynn County, we ended up tracking all the storm damage and got $750,000 back because we had the records to back up our claims.
Great.
So any kind of storms, this will immediately track it. They were pretty impressed. They came in and asked for a report, and it took us 10 minutes to print it off and hand it to them. And so that's what I'm looking for. And it'll also look at if we get a complaint on something and we don't do anything, it'll show it.
Good.
I mean, it will show. It's a two-edged sword. Again, I use an example down in Lynn County. A guy came in one day and he said, "You haven't touched my road in a year." And I looked back and sure enough, it was 3 years we hadn't touched his road. So it works both ways.
Sure.
There were other people came in and said, "You haven't touched our road in a year," and we pulled up the report. John Smith was there. He spent 4 hours. This is a piece of equipment. This is how much gravel he dumped. So it helps us, and it helps us plan. We know where the problems are coming up. We do have a very basic work order system now, but this one would be more, the one I'm looking for would be more aggressive, that as soon as somebody calls, there's a work order cut, but we can pull up that data, when we did it, what we did, what the category of the work order was, how many hours we spent on HVAC systems repairs, or how many hours we spent, who spent how many hours at the aquatic center, which we don't have now. We don't know exactly where people are working.
Right.
So I think it's the next phase.
Good.
And it'll help documentation.
Good. Very good. Very good. Anything else? No. All right. Thank you very much. Chief.
Speaking of the Fall Festival, the Honor Guard will be leading the parade. It'll be their first outing. We're super excited about that. And also, just as a follow-up with Nico's retirement, Officer Whiff has asked for Nico to obviously be his pet. So we have released Nico to him, and he's responsible for all future medicals, food, maintenance, and all of that. So we will not be responsible for Nico any longer. It'll be under Lance's care. So That's all I have.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. Wood, would you mind giving us an update as to some activities at Fall Festival this weekend?
Sure, the city will have a few booths there. The City Hall booth there will be taking donations for the Mayor's Christmas Tree Fund. And we will have a station for kiddos to decorate Christmas sugar cookies. And we will have it decorated for Christmas as well as our float in the parade will be decorated for Christmas for the Mayor's Christmas Tree Fund. And the Parks Advisory Board will be right next to us, and they will have some giveaways as well as trees and bushes and everything like that. And then PD will also have a booth there, so.
Terrific, terrific. Well, look forward to seeing everybody. All right, Mr. Jenkins.
No report.
All right, so we've had a motion and a second, no discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 500. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.